Hello everyone, welcome to tea time. Here we are again, Tuesday at noon. Today I have no tea because I am up in the cherry tree picking cherries. These are the most beautiful little yellow Queen Anne cherries that are part of this really huge old cherry tree. And this cherry tree is in my horse paddock. Now, this is kind of an interesting, controversial topic because cherry trees can be quite poisonous to horses, depending on how much they eat, what variety, etc., etc. But, this is my little barn here. And there is always going to be some balance between actual safety and feeling safe. And for me, the trade-off of having my horses have a pretty big space to live in. You can see this whole paddock behind me, and then it opens up into the woods as well. The bigger the space, the more I think my horses feel safe. Now there's a trade-off because cherry trees, may not be the best trees to have in a horse paddock. If they were to eat a lot of the leaves or a lot of the seeds from the fruit, you might end up with some pretty big problems. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about actual safety and feeling safe. So yeah, it may be a little bit dangerous for me to have cherry trees in my horse paddock, but they're really good. I really appreciate the space that my horses can have. And I feel pretty safe letting them have the cherry trees in their paddock. Hello, Christian. I'm glad you're here for tea time. And hello, Kay. So there's a reason I feel pretty safe about letting my horses have some access to, the cherry trees. That's another one right behind me that are somewhat poisonous. And that is that I feel very strongly that my horses should have adequate food all the time. And so this is what their barn looks like. So we have Atlas and Ari and a whole lot of hay. They have hay available 24/7. Now this means that they're going to be a little bit on the rounder side, okay? They're not very thin horses. Again, there's going to be some trade-offs. There's going to be some toss-ups. But I feel like their feeling of food security and their feeling of safety is well worth the challenges that go along with that. So basically what I'm saying is that it's more important to me that my horses feel safe than there be actual technical safety. So if I were to play everything by the rules, I would take all the cherry trees out of their paddock or make their paddock smaller. And I would limit their food so they got exactly the right amount of calories, so they were exactly the right amount of weight. And that's not really how I want to live. Yes, absolutely. Ari has a fatty neck. He does. And I'm willing to take that, okay? He is a little on the fat side. And I'm going to be honest with it, and I'm going to say that I'm really happy with letting my horses be a little bit on the fat side. Maybe they're technically less healthy, but I think they feel safer. And, so I will keep food in front of them all the time, even if it means that they end up a little bit fatter. Everybody has their own choices to make about this. And, for different horses, different people, different environments, you may have to make very different choices. But for me, I prioritize their feeling of being safe above their actuality of being safe. It's just the way I choose to live with my horses. So, yes, they should all be a little thinner. Fully admit it. And yet, they're really happy. And, here's another thing is that I have two stallions of very, very different backgrounds who they have hurt each other in the past. And I have them living with this, knee-high barrier between them that they could easily climb over and hurt each other. But they don't. And I think that's partially because of the way I've set it up with the ample amounts of food between them. And I've also done this thing where they have wooden platforms to stand on here. And so the wooden platforms to stand on gives them a little bit of better posture when they eat. And it also just makes it a little less likely that they're going to charge over that barrier at each other. Yeah, I know, Chris. We'll have these balances to make between perfect health or perfect safety and a feeling of safety and a feeling of our mental and emotional health. So, I choose to keep a little bit more food in front of my horses all the time. And, the counterbalance of that is I don't worry about them with the cherry trees. I don't worry that they're going to eat too much of the poisonous trees. Yeah. They take a bite every once in a while. They nibble on a leaf here or there. But they have all the food that they emotionally want right here in front of them. They have the companionship that they want. It's dangerous. Most people that I know would never put two stallions that fight across a barrier this small because it would be really unsafe, technically. But because of the way my horses feel safe, it is worth doing for me. And I think that, these things are going to come up all the time. When you're riding, how you ride, where you ride, when you ride. And the feeling between me and the horses being emotionally calm and centered and confident is so much more important to me than the actual safety. Yeah, so this barrier, I agree, Annie. It's just like a big hay trough in the middle. I've got a pallet underneath. I've got my hay with nets over it. They can be on either side, and they spend most of every day here. They have big woods that are really comfortable to be in. They've got pastures they could graze, but this is their favorite spot right here if there's food to eat. So I guess I wanted to bring up today the fact that we will always make choices that feel right to us in the moment. If they are the wrong choices, they will get worse. Something will get worse and we will have to make a change. If they're the right choices, then, we just assess that moment by moment. And so there's a lot of different ways to think about this. Now, one of them is, you'll notice there's some flies on Ari's face. We don't have, and Atlas less so on that side of the barn, but we don't have a lot of flies here. But I don't tend to overdo the fly spray. Yes, I could. Yes, the flies are irritating. But one of the things that happens when my horses are irritated by flies is they'll take a canter lap around the field. They'll take a canter lap around their pasture. This is one of those small things that makes me feel safer letting them eat as much food as they want to eat. Now, obviously, different places in the country, you're going to have to balance that differently. But for where I live, a little less fly spray means a little more exercise in a natural kind of way, which means, they balance out the fact that they probably eat a little too much. I can't make blanket statements for everybody in the country, but I can say where I live, this is one of the things that makes sense. If I have a body worker coming to work on my horses, absolutely I will coat them with fly spray so that they're comfortable and content standing for the body worker to do their job. I will also use fly spray to the point where they're comfortable with it. I'm actually just in the middle of editing a really fun video about some of that training with the fly spray bottle. And I'll post that on Patreon this week because it is a process. And if horses have freedom to choose, whether they want fly spray on them or not, they're probably going to choose not unless they've had some previous experience that it was good or interesting in some way. And so it's kind of a tricky problem. How do you convince a horse that something that smells bad or smells strange is a good idea? And so yeah, I had a really fun time exploring it and building a video about it this week in a different way than I did a couple of years ago. I did one a couple of years ago on Patreon, and it was interesting. But I think I have a new angle on it that's kind of fun. So let's see. Annie says, I changed the way to look at my herd, seeing the stress levels and the harmony too. I can see from their choices, it's a great compass. Yeah. Yeah. You know, a lot of times we think the horses are stressed, and then if we just take a moment and stand in their shoes and think, what does it look like for them? What does it feel like from their point of view? How do they relate to each other? Sometimes that's helpful. Kay says, what are your feelings? Let's see, it's long here. What are your feelings between providing comforts like food and water tank and salt lick, all centrally located, and spreading out their resources so they will have to move and travel like they would if they were wild? I only have 8 acres, and I started to spread out their resources, water tank at one end, salt at the other. And unless it's rainy or windy, I actually sprinkle their hay out super thin so they're grazing and seeking each blade. They also have grass 3/4 of the year in North Carolina. So that's a great question. I am divided on that. So with Ari grew up in the wild. He will 100% seek out what he needs. And in his paddock, I like to have things as spread out as possible. Atlas, however, over here, will go an entire day without drinking water if it's too far away. And that's not a health compromise I'm willing to make. He gets really dehydrated. You can see his skin stand out in wrinkles. He gets really grumpy. So for Atlas, I need to group the resources a little bit closer together to make sure that he actually does drink when he needs to drink. Generally speaking, I would say any horse that comes out of the wild, absolutely spread those resources out as far apart as possible. The exercise that they get going to get what they want is so good for them. For some sort of a rescue case that has a tendency to really freeze up and be somewhat catatonic, you may need to make their water more obvious. You may need to make their resources a little bit more accessible so they don't have to travel so much. I've really had to separate my exercise out with Atlas so that I give him exercise at separate times and make sure that his resources are always fully available. So, as always, it depends. But I wanted to share with you guys, you know, this is how I really like keeping horses. I wish that I had more horses. I wish that I had both of my stallions in herds full of friends they felt really safe with. Because the fact is, I put them together every day when I'm with them, and as long as I'm here to help them manage their emotions, they really enjoy being friends. But the moment I'm too far away, they do hurt each other. And I would say it seems like about every 3 or 4 months I make a mistake. I'm too far away. Somebody ends up with a big cut. And it's not the type of thing where they get a big cut and then they recover from it. It's the type of thing where one of them hurts the other one, and then they start threatening to jump fences to get away from each other because they really scare each other. So, you know, that's an area where I struggle still with the feeling of safety. In order to feel safe with these 2 horses being in the same paddock, I have to be with them. And I have to be pretty careful I don't get too far away. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. And, you know, maybe at some point I'll have more horses and they can each have their own herd where they get to have really good friends and feel really safe. I don't have enough horses right now. I don't have enough land or pasture or fencing. So there's a whole bunch of things that I'm still juggling to get that ultimate feeling of safety that leads to the best quality of life. I just think in general, if you're considering how you keep your horses and how they are with each other, it's going to be a constant puzzle of what factors make them feel safe. And, you know, if you have enough safety factors in the puzzle, you can include some things that aren't safe. Like I was talking about earlier, you know, my cherry trees in the paddock, they are somewhat poisonous to horses. So I've got 2 cherry trees here that are over 100 years old. I don't want to cut them down. I don't really want to make my paddock any smaller. And so we accept that that technical danger actually feels pretty safe, specifically because of the way I feed my horses and the fact that Ari and Atlas have endless amounts of hay to fulfill their hunger needs without having to go for the poisonous trees. So Annie says it's a great way of training horses if you work on their feeling about different parts of their lives, because every other thing you want to do them gets better too and safer for everyone. Exactly. Thank you, Annie. Well said. Yeah, and Kristen says, I'm training Wotan currently to feel safer in the trailer. Yes, feeling safe in the trailer is such a valuable thing. When I get back from my European teaching tour, I will get the trailer back in their paddock to make sure that we keep progressing that with Atlas. As some of you guys might know, Ari's very safe in the trailer. He really likes it. He jumps right in. He feels good about it. Atlas is still a work in progress. So that will be on the project for when I get back from Europe. So thank you guys, and I hope that's some good food for thought around horses and feeling safe. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Let me know if you have any subjects you'd like me to talk about. I'm always happy to see if I can wind them into a story from my life too. Yeah, Kristen, I agree. Atlas did walk in really beautifully last time to the trailer. Took a little longer than I anticipated, but when he did it just right for him. So that's part of it too. All right, have a wonderful, safe week, everybody. And thank you, Kay. I'm happy to be sharing everything I learn as I learn it. And if you guys are interested in kind of a fun fly spray desensitizing video, I'm putting that together for this Friday on my Patreon group.